Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Stesha Brandon, the Literature and Humanities Program Manager here at the Seattle Public Library. As we begin today, I want to take a minute to acknowledge that we are on Indigenous land. Here in Seattle, these are the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Duwamish people. We honor their elders past, present, and future, and we thank them for the stewardship of this land. Welcome to today's program with the Jack Straw Writers, presented in partnership with the Jack Straw Cultural Center. We would like to thank our sponsors, the Gary and Connie Kunis Foundation and the Seattle Times, for their generous support of library programs. Thank you as well to the Seattle Public Library Foundation. Private gifts to the foundation from thousands of donors help the library provide free programs and services that touch the lives of everyone in our community. Before we get started, I just have a couple other announcements. We are recording today's program, and so if you haven't done so already, please just take a minute to silence your phones. And you received a survey when you came in. This is an opportunity for you to make your voice heard, so we're interested in knowing a bit more about you and what you'd like to see here at the library. Now I'm delighted to welcome our program. Now in its 28th year, the Jack Straw Writers Program has included more than 300 Pacific Northwest writers who represent a diverse range of literary genre. The purpose of the Jack Straw Writers Program is to introduce local writers to the medium of recorded audio, to develop their presentation skills for both live and recorded readings, to encourage the creation of new literary work, to present the writers and their work and in live readings, in an anthology, on the web and on the radio, and to build community among writers. This year's curator is Nisi Shawl. Nisi is the multiple award-winning author, co-author, and editor of more than a dozen books of speculative fiction and related nonfiction, including the standard text on diverse representation, Writing the Other, A Practical Approach. Nisi's best-known fiction is the Nebula Award finalist novel Everfair, and recent books include the 2022 story collection Our Fruiting Bodies, the 2023 middle grade historical fantasy novel Speculation, and 2024's Kinning, the sequel to Everfair. Editing credits also include the anthology New Sons 2, the sequel to the acclaimed New Sons 1. They've spoken at Duke University, Spelman College, Sarah Lawrence College, and many other institutions, and they teach online and in-person courses on respectful representation, dialogue, and dialect, culturally inclusive world building, and diverse narrative voices. For over 2 decades, they have served on the boards of the Clarion West Writers Workshop and the Carl Brandon Society, which is a nonprofit supporting the presence of people of color in fantastic literature. And incidentally, they were also our spring guest curator here at the library this past spring. So here to talk a little bit about this year's Jack Straw Writers cohort, please help me welcome Nisi Shawl.
Thank you. Wow, too much about me. Okay. Yes, it is my birthday, but you don't have to make it all about me because because we're here to celebrate the Jack Straw Writers coming to fruition of the 2024 cohort. So thank you for coming to help celebrate that. Thank you to the Seattle Public Library for hosting us here this afternoon. Last autumn, a little over a year ago, I became the curator for this program, the Jack Straw 2024 cohort. That meant that I selected the program's 12 participants from over 100 applicants. I did this based on their writing ability, the urgency of their messages, and the commitment to reaching an audience, which, yay, we're doing. Today, you'll be treated to brief readings by 9 of the program's 12 fellows, only 9 of the 12 because illness and the surgery of a family member prevented the participation of Allison Masankai, Jarrett Deemer, and McKenna Prinsing. Plus, 3 of the 9 readings will be presented via recorded clips, since not all of the rest of us could make it to the event in person. But I know you'll be glad of all we're able to share here in any way we're able to reach you. And be sure to pick up a copy of our anthology over there if you haven't done so yet. And those of us here physically will be more than happy to sign it for you right after the reading. I'll just add a little bit more about Jack Straw. As Stesha was saying, it's a nonprofit community center. Lots of cool stuff happens, including writers learning how to read and perform their work. The support that Jack Straw offers includes coaching sessions, podcast recording dates, and staff members, such as Levi, who coordinate readings around our region. So necessary, so rewarding, I hope. The voices you'll hear this afternoon are made audible by Jack Straw and the Jack Straw community's many generous donors. I'm going to tell you now a little bit about all the different readers, and then each reader is going to tell you the names of the people coming after them. So we've got to start at the end of the anthology. Gabriel Mosley introduces us to a genre we may want to call sporecore or mycopunk in an excerpt from his promising novel In Progress. Stacy Nathaniel Jackson in a clip reads from a short story adjacent to his Afrofuturist novel, The Ephemera Collector, which comes out in April. Catherine DiNardo shares part of a true story about a very specific group of orcas whose lives she declares we can no longer claim not to understand. That'll be in a clip also. Amontane Aurore reads a poignant selection from her memoir set in Seattle's historically Black Central District. Becca Rose Hall's selection from her historical novel In Progress takes us to a truly different country right next door, the past. Mary Pan shares an excerpt from her medical memoir highlighting the tension between her work as a doctor and her ex-husband's mental illness. E.J. Batiste, again in a clip, recites the truths to us that her heart hears and her mind translates seems so easily. Elise Hauser renders poetic her depiction of the global commons and soul-stirring her incitement to global change. And finally, Josh Griffin helps us understand poetry as active, as joyful, as growth, and gives us the courage to carry our truth into real life. So that's how the show is going to go. Like I said, each author will finish by telling you the name of the next to come. Thank you for being here, and remember to get a copy of our book when we're done, if you don't have it already, and get it signed. Thank you. Gabriel?
Hello. Can everybody hear me? Give me a thumbs up or down. I tend to talk a little quiet. First, just want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you to Seattle Public Library, Jack Straw, Levi, Nisi, cohort. Really appreciate it. Yes, I'll be reading from the opening of this novel, The God Spore King. When little Nikolai first arrived at Camp Covenant, we knew that he was different, and not just different because of his scarred and stunted body, his Russianness, or his strange little hands. As the most experienced youth guardians at the camp, my friends and I recognized that the abnormal are still precious members of God's flock. Our elders recognize this too, at least in theory. But the other campers felt uneasy around little Nikolai. There was just something weird about him. He was either too withdrawn or too engaged. There were moments where he'd seem to drift off to other worlds, utterly transfixed. You could wave a hand in front of his eyes and he wouldn't notice. You could scream at him and he wouldn't flinch. But then, eventually, he'd suddenly snap back to the present with a startling intensity. He also asked too many questions. What was the happiest moment of your life? What was your worst pain? How exactly does the mystery of Holy Communion work? Why do people have to die? He even asked Father K, a former Imperial Marine, what it feels like to kill another person right in the middle of our urban warfare class. He also took the whole Emersonian celebration of God in all things a bit too literally. He prayed to the embers of the bonfire. He prayed to the river and to the rain. He prayed to the moss and to the ferns and to the trees. Even after he'd been corrected and punished for his paganism, I still caught him sometimes at dawn, kneeling with hands outstretched, praying towards the sun. This is all to say, he made people uncomfortable. The camp fathers and sisters did try to rein in the bullying to a degree. Father Tom preached about kindness and accepting otherness and abnormality in his morning sermons. But meanwhile, the campers bullied little Nikolai mercilessly. They called him cruel names, they stole his food, they peed in his sleeping bag, and they mocked his tiny hands. My friends and I did put an end to the bullying, but none of us understood the immensity of what little Nikolai's arrival would mean for our camp or for the world. At that time, we were still cleaved from one another, still trapped in the buzzing ego prisons of our tiny minds. But I'm getting ahead of myself, jumbled. I apologize. My name is Elijah Mabton. You will remember it. I may have started out as nothing more than a glorified camp counselor, but soon I will join with a vast consciousness that is older than the stars. But before I become the next speaker for the Bloom, I want to share the true story of what happened at Camp Covenant and to explain why we've been forced to take drastic actions. The tyrant billionaire Alexander Harkin, traitor to God, country, and planet, has warped our message of transformative liberation. His mercenaries have caged us like animals, turning our summer religious retreat into a concentration camp. They have tortured our Messiah ruthlessly with experiments too cruel for lab rats. They have murdered children. And all the while, Alexander Harkin jerks the strings of the puppet media who dance, dance, dance to his wicked songs. They call us fanatics, terrorists. They call little Nikolai a cult leader, a false prophet. Well, they would have said the same of Jesus Christ. They would have sided with Judas Iscariot and filled their pockets with bloody gold. They would have nailed the nails through Christ's healing hands. We have tried to negotiate. We have tried to be reasonable. We wanted to spread the new word of God and the glory of his bloom in the spirit of brotherly love and peaceful tranquility. But they have forced our hand. So instead of the shepherd's staff, we will raise the burning spear. Soon the spores of God will bloom throughout my body and my mind. But before I ascend, I want to share with you the wonder of our story, for there was such beauty amidst all the blood. I want to reveal to you the true glory of little Nikolai, the God-sport king. Prepare the way, for the king is coming. Thank you. Yes. Appreciate it. And I also want to introduce digitally, we're going to have Stacy Nathaniel Jackson, followed by Catherine DiNardo. Thanks.
My name is Stacy Nathaniel Jackson. I'll be reading from a new work in progress, an alternate history, entitled Chino, a verse novel. It begins with an epigraph. All water has a perfect memory and is forever trying to get back to where it was. Toni Morrison. Time stream chronology. 1480, Captain General born, Portugal. 1518, Captain General commissioned by Spanish crown, ship purchased and renamed Victoria. 1519, voyage begins. Captain General accompanied by over 200 men, including scholar explorer referred to as the chronicler. Ship manifest lists unnamed teenage slave as inventory. 1521, Captain General slain, Philippines. 1522, Victoria returns to Spain, first ship to circumnavigate the world. 1531, the chronicler dies. 1565, the trans-Pacific slave trade begins. The Manila Galleon. 2122, 600th anniversary of the voyage. Necklace of human remains and alternate navigation log unearthed in a Los Angeles canyon. 2123, The Telling by Anonymous, published. Book 1, The Telling. It may be difficult for some to understand or accept my motivation for holding on to memory logs, attesting phantasmic witness of seamen circumnavigating the open ocean to the Molucas, attempting transport of spice. Ennobled stories of plunder, mutiny, bondage, and pursuit of profits have filled many a folio, though then I knew nothing of history's hoax, bondservant in adolescence to a man of letters. Spectacular incident the 15th of September. Caught weightless inside a spinning water wall, 'twas the severity of unbridled weather sprung. Levitation was but a brief moment in time, that conspicuous occurrence among many on that long, dark voyage, and in my life since. My body hoisted heavenward, the leaden sky howling as seawater pressed upon my chest. The rowboat I'd stolen so far below my feet, but death did not shroud its visage upon me, despite my audacious attempt to escape or risk my last breath overboard the Victoria. It has been said water has a perfect memory, as do words inked on vellum or parchment. Trust, dear readers, in this alternate folio. Trust yourself to determine whose eyes, ears, which version of verity, in spite of elaborate map renderings or chronicles of discovery, to disbelieve. I have chosen to mask names in this personal narrative, including my own, not for cowardice or hiding evidence of sham. I am neither dastard nor unreliable fabulist. Age, of course, has shaped my point of view, writing the flow of time as in before or ever after. Presented faithfully, Anonymous. Log 1. Continue aboard Victoria, tethered. The chronicler sails for history, journal's memory. Unsteady, I sit beside him whilst he places quill to parchment. Worms infest provisions. Soon the inkwell needs felling. I start to tend to it. Come nearer, his plea to me indecorous, as Victoria rolls wave to wave. Ink will wait. I curl away, resist his mouth. an admonition he does not expect. He tells the vicious story of failed mutiny. Oh, the white paste of him. I comprehend the chronicler's retelling as a dare, nay, a warning. Complaint of conditions shan't be tolerated. Our shared fate, master-slave, mentor-mentee. Arrogancy loosens free old gratitude for minor freedoms, reading, writing, an uneven exchange, heat of the body. On this 6th day of September 1520, I sail on the longitude of no and the latitude of never. A brittle breeze clinks the striking and lowering of Victoria's sails, now thousands of leagues from any known shore. I may be kept, but I am my own keeper. I envision release, freedom before the storm of another making. The chronicler glares. Silence. Can he see the seeds of triplicity rising, fire, earth, water, on my horizon? With my sight saying, I am transgressor. On the sea's shadows I scheme to chronicle our voyage in my own hand. Must I concede accounts of unrepentant conquest? Wistful, I settle, plot a plan in the mind of my mind, then rise to fill the inkwell, pushing aside the chronicler's hand, pale blue, cold, defiant.
When Scott Veers can't sleep, he listens for whales. In the dark, in his sweatpants, slippers, and headphones, he sits at the desk of his home office in the Ravenna neighborhood of Seattle and tunes in to the live audio stream from a hydrophone anchored to the rocks like kelp on the west side of San Juan Island. He hears the low throb of propellers chugging up Harrow Strait. He hears the snapping claws of crustaceans. He hears the static of wind and rain. If he's lucky, he hears the muted trumpet of a humpback whale, or if it's early summer, the bark of a harbor seal. If he's really lucky, he hears the calls of the southern resident killer whales. The southern residents are a small, endangered community of killer whales that live in the coastal waters of Washington and British Columbia. There are 3 pods, J, K, and L. Only 73 animals in all. They depend on wild Chinook salmon, yet wild Chinook salmon are scarce. Killer whale calls sound like conversation, laughter, banter, Marco, Polo, a yodel, a yoo-hoo, a cheerio. Some calls sound like squeaky shoes or a clown bending balloons. Others like blowing bubbles or blowing raspberries or blowing noses. The kinds of sounds that would make a classroom of children giggle. Each of the 3 pods uses its own characteristic calls, and these calls endure over time, over decades, and are passed down from generation to generation. J-Pod's S1 call sounds the same now as it did in recordings from 1960. A southern resident killer whale who was captured off Whidbey Island in 1976 and spent her life in captivity in Miami continued to make southern resident calls after not hearing them for almost 50 years. S6 is a call all 3 pods make. It sounds like a call and the echo of the call. S9, another used by all 3 pods, is a 3-beat call. Slow, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick. Researchers call it the Figaro. K-Pod's S16 call sounds like a seagull. There's a yearning to it. L-Pod's S19 call sounds like a farmer whistling for his border collie. This was the call I heard a few weeks ago in a rare recording from a new mother in L-Pod and her 3-day-old calf in Harrow Strait. In the recording, the mother's S19 call rings out clear and crisp. The response sounds like a child learning to whistle with overly pursed lips and unformed notes. It takes time for a calf to learn its family's calls. Listening to killer whales reminds me of listening to my baby's in utero heartbeats. Animate sounds, intimate sounds, ethereal sounds that are transmitted through a body and through a body of water. Sounds that would remain unheard by us if not for some kind of instrument to convey the message from one realm to another. There are 7 hydrophones in the Salish Sea. You can listen live to what's going on underwater. The first morning I logged on to the live hydrophone network, I heard what sounded like running water or a stream with an occasional splash or sploosh. I heard what sounded like feet trotting through puddles. I heard snap, crackle and pop, not unlike my breakfast of Rice Krispies as a kid. Another time, I heard the steady thud of boat propellers and diesel engines. I heard a loud droning and a monotonous hum. I did not hear quiet, and I did not hear killer whales. If they were there, I wondered, could they hear each other? Noise disturbance from ships and boats drowns out the killer whale's calls and makes it harder for them to find and catch Chinook. Noise disturbance reduces the killer whale's acoustic space, reduces their world, reduces their chance of survival. The new mother and her calf were seen again a couple of weeks after the recording, this time with other L-pod whales near Swiftshore Bank off the south end of Vancouver Island. The day's entry in the Centre for Whale Research field report says that the calf was lumpy and skinny. It appeared to have stopped breathing. Scott thinks about whale calls a lot. He thinks about the sound that propagates from them and the intention behind them. He thinks about the behaviors and how they relate to the calls, the gatherings of families and pods on cool summer evenings, the surface percussion of tail slaps and fin slaps, the coordination of individuals on a foraging spree, the roaming of an adult male far from the others, and the beckoning of a mother to her calf on an autumn afternoon. He thinks about what it would mean to lose these whales, lose their voices in the soundscape of the Salish Sea.
Is Amontaine Aurore.
Thank you. This is an excerpt from my autobiographical novel called The Memoirs of Ruby Lovestone. And this is called Pancake Day 1965. Is there an echo? Does this sound echoey? Okay. Mother's disgust with making pancakes took over the kitchen. The once loving and careful pouring of the pancake mixture in smooth, thick circles onto the hissing skillet was replaced by plops and jerks. Spoons and forks clanged, boom, bang, boom, and plates landed hard and fast. How many more Sundays of her life would Mother have to smell the frying batter that sickened her? She only made pancakes now because it was Father's favorite Sunday breakfast. The fissures of living a life purely to be wife and mother were fissuring. Not that Father noticed. He had come to the breakfast table with his newspaper, luminous in his gold satiny bathrobe that made him look like a benevolent dictator. He was humming the refrain to Yesterday, astonished that 4 skinny white boys from Liverpool, who once had nothing more profound to say than yeah, 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 had actually written a song he admired. Life for Father at this moment was bliss, with Beatlesque harmonies to contemplate and his favorite Sunday breakfast on the horizon. As he opened the newspaper, his nirvana was soon hijacked and his blood pressure catapulted. God damn it, son of a bitch, he yelled out. There was something outrageously unjust happening in the morning newspaper. As usual, it must have been something President Johnson was doing, or the Do Nothing Congress, or something redneck stupid happening in Bull Connors, Alabama. Not even an exquisite song and the promise of a beloved meal could alleviate the pain in the world for longer than a fleeting moment. 2 pancakes cut up into bite-sized bits, a link sausage also cut up in bits, a scrambled egg, and a glass of milk arrived in front of me. Did I detect something sinister behind Mother's smile when she presented the plate filled with food I would never be able to finish? I was expected to eat it all. Mother always gave us girls way too much food, considering we all were small eaters. But my sisters had found innovative ways to get rid of their food. Boiled potatoes snuck back in the pot when no one was looking. Lima beans secretly folded into the napkin that got stuffed way down in the bottom of the garbage can. Cassie had found a way to push her dreaded green peas into the hole of her soft plastic dining chair. But I wasn't that brave or creative. I would spread my food out to the corners of the plate so that the middle of the plate looked clean. But then Mother would grab my fork and scrape it all together again. See all this food? You're not done. They say that some people's expression of love is through the stomach, but for my 8-year-old's minuscule belly, food felt like a tool of torture. Delphi was disgusted with the breakfast also, but for different reasons. Mother, why are we still buying Aunt Jemima pancake mix? Delphi wanted to know. I refuse to eat it until they take the picture of the black mammy off the packet. That image has been used to belittle and degrade us. This is 1965, and it's way past time to stop supporting these harmful stereotypes of our people. I will only take eggs this morning. Wow. I thought stuffing peas in the hole in the plastic chair was genius. Delphi had taken this thing to a whole new level. I tried to piggyback with a, yeah, me too, but I was told to clean my plate or no Flintstones. Now, here I was, an hour later, the last one left at the table. I was not supposed to get up until I finished at least most of my food, so meals usually ended up this way. Me, all alone, tears on the way, and a plate of food growing hard and cold in front of me. I put my head down on the table for a second. When I opened my eyes again, a woman was standing over me. She was very large, with black skin and hazel eyes. She was wearing a red and white checkered dress, white apron, and red and white checkered scarf tied around her head. She held a platter that was piled 5 feet high with pancakes. Melting butter was dripping over the sides of the stack and onto the floor, where it made big yellow pools around her feet. She smiled at me. What's the matter, honey child? Don't you know today is pancake day? Everyone eats them. Do you mind if I sit down? I need to rest my feet. I've been chained to the stove for 75 years. Aunt Jemima? I said. Hey, I think I saw you in a movie. Are you a movie star too? I used to be in a whole lot of movies, she said. Some big ones too. You might have seen me opposite Mr. Clark Gable. Not so much anymore. Now it's just mostly appearances at festivals. Even that's slowing down because folks complaining. Oh, there are still those clinging to my apron for dear life and talking about the good old days. But for the most part, folks saying I'm too old, too round, and ashamed to erase. Just a slave in a box. Don't you know, there's about to be a revolution, and I ain't no part of it. But I'm hoping to make a comeback after my polishing up. Child, they about to shape-shift me into a real highfalutin lady. They're going to lose me 100 pounds and lighten my skin to a walnut brown. They say the head rag got to go, so I'm getting one of those cute little pressing curls. Curls going to look just like Lana Turner's. They got me talking all proper now, too. Ain't no more this and that. I mean, isn't no more this and that. They say after this done, folks, maybe folks love me again, and I can keep cooking pancakes for another 400 years. Looks like it's starting to rain, don't it? I think I'm going to take me a nice little walk. See, I love walking in the rain. Aunt Jemima flipped off her headscarf and revealed a head full of sleek, glossy curls. See? My perm's permanent. No matter how wet my hair gets, it'll never go back. As she stood up, her hair began to grow, stretching down her back and onto the floor where the ends mingled with the hot, melted butter. Oh, and by the way, she said, don't eat all them pancakes. Truth be told, they're not that good for you. I woke up to Mother calling my name. I looked down at the bits of uneaten pancakes, sausage, and eggs that had been spread out to the far corners of my plate. Wash the plate and do that, Mother said. Breakfast is finally over. Thank you. Next up is Uncle Rose Hall.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Nisi and Jackstra, including Levi, and to the library for having us, and so much for everyone who's here. And it's just been so much fun being in a cohort with all of you. So thank you all. I'm going to read today from my novel in progress, which I think is called Mother of Discontent. And it's set in a town called Home, which is out on the Kitsap Peninsula. It's set now when their narrator, whose name is Claire, inherits her dad's house out there, and also in 1910 when it was an anarchist colony where her great-grandmother lived. And this place is a real place. This little excerpt, Claire is cleaning out her dad's house and remembering when she lived there as a little kid before her parents split up, so like the late 70s. Almost my earliest memory, waking in the darkness in a sleeping bag on the floor of my parents' room. That's because we had guests, and the guests had been given our room. They'd been there a long time, weeks or years or something. So Ben and I lived in our sleeping bag nest with our feet in the closet. That night I woke up and the whole room was darkness. Ben was asleep. There were voices in the kitchen, raised a little bit. I opened the door and wandered out, a little Victorian ghost in my flannel nightgown and my French braid. The lady guest was crying while the man guest looked on coolly, sucking on his cigarette. The smoke swirled under the lamp, and I wondered if it were a genie and if I should wish for a pony or some jelly shoes. Fucking pigs, fucking pigs, said the lady guest, who was the first person I'd ever heard swear over farm animals. Maybe she was a vegetarian? Go back to bed, Claire, said my dad. I collected my hugs and went back to the bedroom. I didn't shut the door. I didn't like the darkness it made. Outside, I heard the man say, he was a good brother. I don't want to do it anymore, said the woman, her voice all high up with fear. Baby, honey, the man said, they're not on our asses. And I knew what asses were, butts. Just as I suddenly remembered pigs were cops. But somehow my mind was still picturing the lady guest and the man guest arguing with some hogs over a couple of donkeys, which made me think of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, which was one of my mom's favorite swear words because she'd grown up Catholic and that sticks around a while. I was wondering if maybe the guests were going to have a baby and if we needed to get more hay in the chicken coop, so maybe they could manger it out there. The war's over. What are we even doing anymore, said the lady. The acute war, yeah, but not the race war. The man's voice had a tone in it, like he thought she was a little stupid. Hiding out on the edge of the world when we could be involved in something, the lady said, like she knew what stupid was and it wasn't her. The edge is a righteous place to be, said my dad. Like, think of a playground merry-go-round. Where'd you exert force to make it turn one way or the other? The fucking edge, man. And my mom, speaking for the first time, but you have to touch the merry-go-round. You have to be connected. That's what she's saying, Arnie. You can't be the solution, babe, if you're part of the problem. My mom didn't say anything, just cleared her throat in that way she had that let you know she had opinions. I don't remember the rest of the conversation. I don't even remember how much I filled it in from smaller scribbles of memory. But I think it ended in the good, homey smell of weed and eventually my parents' whispers as they stepped past us and into bed. And somewhere before or after that, me dreaming dreams of dizzy, cold metal merry-go-rounds and squealing pigs jamming their damp and bristly noses against my butt, of running and running and running. Shortly after, the guests were gone and our sleeping bags hung back on their closet nails. My mom picks up her phone on the treadmill. She answers with an unnervingly breathy voice, like I'd call the phone sex that line staffed by a middle schooler, which would be disturbing enough if it wasn't also my mother, which is why when I'm keeping track of time and the schedules of days, I never call her between 10:30 and 11. Hi, sweetie, she bubbles airily. The sock sorting. Straight in the trash, I say, and then get to the point. Hey, Mom, did you and Dad ever, harbor fugitives? My mom has stopped running. Her voice has a subtle but strange tone, like she's talking through a fakely bright smile. My daughter calls me up out of the blue on a cell phone with a joke like that? The emphasis hangs in the air. And of course, how naive of me. You don't go talking about these things on the telephone, even back in those days where the invasion of privacy was still considered a desperate measure, a crime. I laugh. I've been watching these spy movies, I lie as a cover for our hypothetical phone tempers. The 70s were wild. We talk about Roger's sciatica. We talk about Althea until my mom starts commenting on her pubescence, saying she's really budding out, and I get off the phone before I say something I regret. Not 10 minutes later, I get a message on Signal from a family member. Not 10 minutes later, I get a message on Signal from a familiar number, which turns out is my mom. The truth is we did, for about 6 months, when you were 4, he writes vaguely. Okay, I thought I remembered something like that, I write, keeping it just as vague. But then out come all the details. They were good friends from our time in the underground. Your dad knew them from actions and they needed a place to hole up. The paranoia and blasé statements jarred me, as if Signal were actually really shielded from the FBI, if the FBI were actually really monitoring a retired nurse turned realtor in Paulsbo. And the complete lack of introspection, not that texts were the medium for that, but still, she'd had children. We'd been children, lying right there in our sleeping bags on the floor. And what would have even happened to us if the FBI had come in? And what did she even mean, our time in the underground? Thank you. Next up, we have Mary Pan. Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. Thanks, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for coming. Thank you to Nisi and Jack Straw, especially Levi, who has done so much for us this year. Thank you. And thanks to Seattle Public Library for having us. Oh, you want me to come closer? Sure. Is that better? Great. So I'm going to read an excerpt that I have not shared with this group before from my memoir in lyrical essays. This is titled Liminal. April 2020. I sense her nearness before I know I am conscious. That purgatory space between a dream and wakefulness, where reality melds with fantasy and our limitless mind mingles with the concrete physical world. My eyes are closed, but I hear her breath, the door open, a pause. She stands at the foot of my bed, considering. Maybe she wants to say mom. Maybe she wants to touch my arm to wake me. Maybe she nearly just crawls into bed on the empty side where my husband once lay, but now is occupied simply by the space, the absence of him. My daughter was never a good sleeper. When she was a toddler, she'd wake early morning just before the pigeons began to coo. The 4 a.m. stillness would often find her standing at my bedside, statuesque and staring, waiting for me to sense her presence and wake. Now she is 9 and the independent eldest of 3. She sleeps in the basement, choosing the bedroom farthest from mine, rather than suffer sharing a bunk bed with her 3-year-old sister. In this month since the separation from my husband, a pandemic took hold. As our lives were upended, the rest of the world's was too. A strange congruity, an unexpected comfort that all of humanity was thrust into uncertainty, into fear along with us. There was no normality to mourn. I am a physician, had been attempting to keep the kids out of my bedroom and bathroom since my first quarantine at the beginning of March, when I ran a low fever, felt achy and chilled, suffered a mild cough and fatigue. My COVID test, after 5 days of confinement, had been negative, but the experience put me on guard. My younger babies, they didn't hesitate to crawl into my bed, to be held and cuddled. But my oldest, she'd seen too much. Her father's psychiatric hospitalizations, her mother's inability to fix it all, the fracturing of a marital bond, a novel pandemic. She knew that her mama knew pain, that we all suffer failure, that life could be unexpectedly cruel. She makes her decision, her breathing steadies, her cadence sure. She climbs into the bed, pulls the comforter over her slight shoulder, takes her father's place. Her arm reaches out and touches my back, just once. I roll over and make eye contact, acknowledge it is her and not her brother, not her sister who climbed beside me. Unlike them, she keeps the space between us. She looks like her father, this one, with her chestnut hair, her arched eyebrows, her full lips. She looks like him, but is just like me. The anxious eagerness to perform, the lashing out in order to protect, the exuberant magnetism coupled with shy retreat. We understand each other, I think, and in the middle darkness, we both fall back asleep. The next morning, I squeeze her shoulder in the breakfast nook, ask if she had a nightmare, if she wants to talk. Yes, I had a bad dream, she tells me. We share the propensity for vivid, turbulent subconsciousness, a curse in the solitary darkness, but a gift for daytime imagination. I wasn't sure, though, if I should get into bed with you. You can always come to me if you're scared, I say quietly, rocking her brown eyes with mine. I'll let you know if I'm worried I might have COVID and you need to stay away. I assure her, reassure myself, maybe with a lie. But we tell ourselves and our children what we need to in order to survive. I meet her gaze and offer her, allow myself, the potential of this in-between. Thank you. And next up, we have EJ Baptiste on video.
Hi. First, I'd like to thank Nisi for curating such a great group. And to Levi, thank you for just being overall fantastic. I have very much enjoyed my time being a Jack Straw writer. Thank you to all my fellow writers and poets. It's been great meeting so many of you, and I really wish I was there in person, but I am in the South, and hurricane season has taken a toll this year. So here I am with my video. And I'm going to be reading poems from my forthcoming collection, as well as from the Jack Straw anthology. My first poem is called I'll Tell You What It Ain't, and it's on Sojourner Truth's On Women's Rights speech, better known as the Ain't I Woman speech, even though that phrase was added years later by another party. Ain't in it. But it was deemed necessary to make it sound like a speech delivered in a Southern slave's vernacular. The goal, it seems, was to water it down, a drink too strong for their tastes. Ain't in it. Speaking only Dutch into almost 10 and residing in New York wouldn't have resulted in a Southern drawl of ain't. Yet in childhood, never known the speech by any other name but the refrain. Ain't in it. But the added ain't can't diminish the educated, sophisticated intellectuals raised with ain't in our vocabularies. Oh, how they downplay the impact of this woman moving in purpose. Dumb it down, make her sound less competent. They thought the message would diminish, yet her real words came soaring through. Ain't in it. Common learned history, wrought with conceptions. Ain't it a shame? My next poem is called Somebody Prayed for Me. I ran to the well. The wail, it touched my soul. I ran to the well. The wail ran cold. I ran to the well. The wail I couldn't control. I ran to the well. The wail made me whole. My next poem is called I Shall. I shall walk in the ethereal energy that I denied myself. That same energy they scoffed at and told me to tone down. I shall move with the melody tattooed on my soul and will shrug off those judgmental daggers aimed straight at my abdomen. For I am queen of my own making, and yet still heir to the throne. I glide in grace. Goddess, 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 I shall be. My next poem is called The Instinct is to Hide. Sitting on sidewalk at twilight, wind whipping through my hair unruly, I hum a melody, a wish to still be loved tomorrow. Oh, beloved. But the wind knew better. The melody cast off, never meeting her ear. And my last poem I'll be reading is Exotic. She called me exotic, and I said thank you, because I knew she meant it as a compliment. She was attempting to be encouraging, to tell me that I was worthy of the opportunity coming my way. So I said thank you. She meant well, and I was flattered momentarily, but then I thought again. I was deemed worthy because I looked exotic. Mixed? Not fully one color. I was worthy because I didn't look identifiable. Was it ugly truth wrapped in well wishes? I said thank you. She meant well, I think. And thank you.
Next up, Elise Hauser. Woohoo!
Been such a great year with Jack Straw. I spent most of the year writing about the deep sea and the possible threat of deep sea mining in Norway. It's in the anthology. And I said in my Jack Straw application that if I was done writing about this before the year ended, I would turn my attention to writing about freshwater. Well, of course, I've realized that I'll never be done writing about the deep sea in Norway or anywhere. But I wanted to bring in some freshwater too. I think it's a nice reminder that all the water systems of Earth, from mountain lakes to the deepest sea, are connected and support all life. So here's a personal essay. I'll read the first part of it. It was written with a series called Letters to America in mind, so it has some epistolatory qualities, and it's called Letter to America, No Fishing. My father, as an untamed young hunter and fisher, was camping near a stream when the volcano, Mount St. Helens, blew in 1980. Far removed from phone lines and newspapers, he knew that something strange had happened. The stream turned as black as the coal his ancestors had mined. I came along 8 years later, practically born to fish. My parents, had met in a salmon cannery on a wild Alaskan island a few years after the eruption. They saw each other across a metal work table. My mother spattered with fish guts. My father in full rain gear and aviator sunglasses, his rubber boots in the salmon blood gutter because he was too tall for the table. They were soon married. I started life between Lakes Washington and Sammamish, where the suburbs of Seattle would someday be. All around us was water, fresh and salt, lakes, streams, and inlets, forming the great estuary that is Puget Sound. It was a matter of fact that I would fish, just as I would read and write and play. The same went for my brother, born almost 2 years after me. Though it was a far cry from subsistence fishing, we cooked what we caught. My father said catch and release was needlessly cruel to the fish, not to mention less satisfying for the humans. He'd clean them on the driveway in a flicker of scales and a splash of guts, while my brother and I watched. Translucent orange eggs spilling out meant the fish was female. It enticed me, the idea that fish could hold secrets inside. As an adult, I've learned that fish hold new secrets now. Dear America, the Duwamish, Seattle's only river, was declared a Superfund site in 2001. The city's formidable industries, including Boeing, where my father once worked as an electrician, have long shunted pollutants into its waters. Of course, Dear America, official documents advise against eating most of its fish and shellfish, but I wouldn't eat any of them. As the 21st century progressed, local salmon started to die before they could spawn. In 2020, researchers at last linked these deaths to tire dust, bleak particles that run from increasingly congested roadways into increasingly empty waterways. The region is gradually switching to electric cars. Though they forgo tailpipe emissions, these heavier cars shed tire dust even faster. Dear America, trout, as well as salmon, suffer the consequences. In late 2022, Washington State issued a fish consumption advisory for forever chemicals, another mark of manufactured modern life. Many fish from the lakes I'd been born between Washington and Sammamish were officially unsafe to eat. They'd likely been laced with invisible poison for years. But you should know, dear America, that visible, tangible trash is no less a threat. Scientists have learned that plastic in waterways breaks down to microscale and nanoscale, almost too small to be imagined, and ends up in the bodies of fish. Globally, some 60% of tested fish have been found with microplastics inside. When we eat them, those plastics move into our bodies, a pathway with effects we still don't understand. I'm in my mid-30s now, dear America, close in age to my parents when they started to take me and my brother fishing. Years cloud the memories. My father's mobility isn't what it was, nor is my mother's mind. Any fishing trip we'd plan now may well be the last for them. We could get new permits, dig out old fishing rods, relearn how to bait and cast. But in the polluted waterland that Western Washington State has become, we'd have to forego key parts of the memories. Stilling the fish with swift blows to the head, cleaning them on sun-warmed concrete, frying them in pans, serving them with bright vegetables. As an adult, I could participate fully in these tasks. And I feel a sense of responsibility to learn the simple things that shaped my young life. But to put fork to mouth would be incredibly foolhardy. We'd take in not just the pollutants that we know of, but others we have yet to find. That's not the end, but I will stop there. Thank you. And next up, we have the talented poet Josh Griffin.
I want to echo it. Everybody else has been saying is thank you for choosing to be here on Saturday, to be anywhere. I wrote this yesterday. I think it's full circle. The title might be For Morocco, For Everywhere, Everyone Always. I'm standing where I once sat in distant places, laying down, lost in night sky, seeing stars from a hammock strung across the roof of an apartment I lived in for 24 months. Feeling the warmth of summer nights from my Beni Ayet community, volunteers who stood with me atop my rooftop. Hearing so much life in so little words, we lost ourselves in conversations that never ended. These conversations will never end. They live and live and live. What if I told you I'm standing here in all the places I've lived in this moment in this moment in time I stand in all the places I've traveled. I'm everywhere. I've been writing, 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 waiting to stand with you here and read these questions that must be lived without seeking answers. What if today was your death day? What would you do? Who would you spend the final moments living with? Money. Would it lose its meaning? Would emotions you've been afraid to speak into existence finally be born from your lips? Is it on your death day that you finally feel the desire to live? Would you live dying each day if you knew there was no death and only life to be lived in each day? The whole world would rise against you, tell you what you can't do, that failure is your only option. Do you fail or do you believe in yourself? Believe in yourself, always. Limits only exist if you limit yourself. Be limitless. This is the only opportunity you get to live. Live in the stories of everyone you meet. You impact lives in ways you'll never see. Don't worry about being seen. You are seen in more ways than you will ever know. Did you know that you're the reason someone loves love? Did you know that you're the reason someone loves love? Loving you is the smile you see when from the stranger you said good morning to, that smiles because of you. So I say to you, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening too. I know I'm rambling on and on, knowing someone might need to hear. I didn't know love until I saw beauty show itself in the form of your personality. If today is my death day, I will spend every day in the final moments of my life living with everyone I've ever known until I'm reunited with my mother, but not today. We're sitting in my apartment in Beni Ayet, Morocco. It's October 30th, 2018. Tomorrow I leave and get ready to return home to Seattle. I'm sitting, reflecting on my 27 months as a Peace Corps volunteer. My wooden table is starting to stare at me. It's strangely telling me to remember. Remember me when you're gone. When people would visit my site, I'd have them sign their name on my table. I'm sitting in my apartment with over 40 people who visited my site. I'm alone, but they're with me, and I'll forever remember them, just like I'll forever remember you. Thank you for Morocco, for everywhere and everyone, always.
Thank you all so much. It is such a delight to work with Jack Straw every year, and every year I'm just blown away by the talent. So thank you. Let's give all the readers one more round of applause. And a special round of applause to Nisi for curating and to Levi for management. Yay! So as you know, there are copies of the Jack Straw anthology right over there, and I'm sure the readers would be delighted to sign your copy. So hit up Levi and then chat with the readers. Thanks everybody for coming. Oh, and if you have surveys, you can put them in a little bin over there, and that wall will soon become a door again, so you're not trapped. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Thanks.